Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John, and in this series of videos I will be giving 31 film recommendations across 31 days. I'll be giving brief, spoiler-free synopsis and highlighting a particular scene that has made this one of my personal favourite films to watch in October. There will be something funny, something spooky. It won't always be Halloween, but there will be certainly some scary stuff in there. So come along with me as I count down my 31 days of Halloween. In 2002's The Ring, it begins as just another urban legend, the whispered tale of a nightmarish videotape that causes anyone who watches it to die 7 days later. But when four teenagers all meet with mysterious deaths exactly 1 week after watching just such a tape, investigative reporter Rachel Keller tracks down this video and watches it. Now the legend is coming true, the clock is ticking, and Rachel has just 7 days to unravel the mysteries of The Ring. Sometimes with horror, I think it can be subjective in that you have to be at the right age, right place and time to truly appreciate how fantastic a film is, and I think The Ring is a really good example of it. Whilst I think The Ring holds up to this day and is fantastic and a really cool idea, I think unfortunately the advancements of technology and things like that may have somewhat removed a little bit of the scariness for new viewers, certainly younger viewers I should say as well. Obviously VHSs have not been around for a very long time, so the idea of a killer videotape today in 2024 might not be quite as scary as it used to be. In 2002, VHSs were prevalent, they were everywhere, everyone still had a video player, DVD was still a relatively new format, so when the idea of an urban legend of a VHS that when you finish watching it, the phone rings and a creepy little girl's voice says 7 days, that was so terrifying an idea. It was so new in terms of taking technology that we all loved. At the time, everyone had a VHS player in their home, well, nearly everyone did, so the idea of you had this gateway in your property for ghosts and malevolent entities to travel into your home to get you. It was such a cool idea, and when you look at it, you think, why was this never done before? Because it's such a smart idea. And before I jump into my favourite scene, or the scene I recommend, one thing I would also say is that I think people should remember or recognise the fact that The Ring, in terms of the pantheon of horror films, was one of the first new wave 2000 movies to have female-centric monsters. You look back over the 80s, and I've spoken about this before in another video, where you have Freddy, Jason, Michael, Leatherface, etc, etc, Candyman, Chucky, Pinhead. Female representation of horror is actually very few and far and in between, particularly in franchises. Angela from the Sleepaway Camp franchise springs to mind, and there are individual cases such as Carrie and Misery and things like that, but The Ring in 2002 kicked that barn door open where you could have a female monster, and she was terrifying. The image of Samara is still in pop culture to this very day. You can still pick up new pops of Samara, new images. You always see it being referenced in films, TV. It's always a top cosplayer. It's very simple because Samara is genuinely, I think, very terrifying and very sad at the same time. And I think it's a wonderful blend of horror, mysteries and sadness that is what makes The Ring so good. And if you've never watched this film, you should watch this film. I think if you are over a certain age and you were an age where you had a VHS player, it will obviously get you on one front because there's that nostalgia now, obviously now that VHSs have gone. But if you're young and under the age where you knew what a VHS was, it is this fantastic window into the past to say, look at this, this idea. Before streaming, there was a videotape, and you could have this story with a monster in it and all this kind of stuff. I think it's a really engaging little time capsule, The Ring, and it demands your attention. It's fantastic. It looks great, it sounds great. So as part of 31 Days of Halloween, the scene that I'm going to recommend is quite literally the opening scene. If you've not seen this film and you watch the first 5 minutes, it tells you everything you need to know about the rest of the film. It is a fantastic scene. It is all about suspense, building that mystery, coming up with the whole urban legend of the cursed videotape. It is so well put together. It's got two girls in it, two high school girls who are home alone watching television. One of them is making jokes, Katie I believe her name is, making jokes or comment about the fact that brainwaves are all getting ruined by radiation from the television and all this kind of stuff, and the other girl, dismissing that, simply says, have you heard the story about the videotape that kills you in 7 days? Katie then reacts in absolute horror and says, why are you reacting like this? To which Katie then says, I watched that tape. I watched it a week ago, 7 days ago tonight. Me and my boyfriend were at a lodge with friends, and we put on a videotape that we thought was a football game that we were wanting to watch, and it turned out to be this bizarre, nightmarish, horror-filled tape. And once it finished, and this woman on the television was looking at us, the tape finished and the phone rang, and it was someone on there who said 7 days. Now, of course, because these are young girls, and because of course they're out cursed videotapes, the first thing the other girl asks is, hang on, did you make it all the way with Josh? And then they play around, have a little bit of a pillow fight, and then the phone rings. And the one girl, Katie, looks with absolute horror at the phone, clearly the fact that it's 7 days to the day since this moment. But when they go and answer the phone, it's Katie's mum. And whilst her other friend gets ready to go to bed, she's wandering around, and as she goes past, the television turns on by itself. Katie at first dismisses it and simply turns off the telly, but when she turns around, it comes back on again. So she runs over in horror and unplugs the phone. When her friend then comes down to find her, she finds Katie in the living room with the television on with static, dead, her face horribly mutilated, and then you realise it's all true. She screams, cut to title sequence. It is so effective, it is so well done. It could be a short in itself. That's the kind of thing that if you would put that on YouTube now, that would go viral immediately. It's a fantastic scene, it tells you everything you need to know, it sets everything up really nicely. The Ring is a great film, it's got a great cast, great story, well worth your attention, but those first 5 minutes I really think are completely unsettling in terms of suspense. It's so well put together, real strong recommend, a real strong opening to a great film. And let's be perfectly honest, The Ring to this day is still scary. I think that Samara, like other horror icons like Kayako, deserves her place in the horror pantheon. So I think that's going to do it for this video. The opening scene of The Ring is fantastic. It is a classic. It is a short story in itself. If you haven't seen the rest of the film, you must go and watch it. You can YouTube the opening scene in The Ring, and it's well worth a look if obviously you want to see what it's all about. I recommend this film. It's fantastic. It's perfect Halloween kind of film. Like, you know, as I said before, sometimes you want something fun, sometimes you want something a little over the top. I think The Ring is genuinely scary. I think it holds its own. It holds up really well. It's an amazing story, well worth your time, well worth your attention. Strong recommend. So until next time, stay scared.